Well, hello. Today we're going to analyze a few games from Kumar and the general public. Now, I've been looking at his games against the AI, and frankly, there's not much that we can learn from that because it's not human. Humans have emotions, have plans. AI doesn't have a plan. AI just makes random moves, and therefore, there's not much you can learn from it. So I like the games against humans, and here we see what is going to come up repeatedly in this conversation is the Italian. Sorry, I mixed up the games. But anyway, we'll start with this one. So we have the Queen's Pawn opening here and early Bishop F4. Now, I personally, as black, like to play with Queen out here attacking this pawn, but there are many different ways to play it. So you've gone for a more symmetrical style, and this appears to be another one of your trademark tendencies, is mirroring. We're going to see that in the next game as well. And now what black is doing effectively is targeting your weak pawn because you've released the bishop. And the interesting thing about this particular position is that right now it's kind of a poisoned pawn. The b7 pawn is oftentimes a poisoned pawn. What does that mean? It means it gives black a lot of counterplay, even though white gains a pawn advantage. So right here, for example, we have a lot of pressure coming up, but black is playing with this active attitude, not minding the pawn, using the open file and creating weaknesses. So even though you lose a second pawn here, the computer still thinks you're actually doing really well at this point. And the only problem is your follow-up is not appropriate. You should just take the pawn. Just take the pawn and then castle and then do some stuff. Or actually, you should take this bishop first, muddy up his pawn structure a bit, then take the pawn, then castle. That would make it clean and nice. But instead, we had a little bit of a dance and you didn't take that extra pawn, and now white has the upper hand here. White has the upper hand. But to your credit, you don't do anything silly. You just keep it solid. Just keep probing, holding it in there, hanging in there, and then you pop it open here. Now I don't know if it's an optimal time to release it, but it's an okay move. And we have this kind of situation. White still in control of the game here, but now he makes a blunder, and you seize that opportunity, and then he follows it up with another blunder. And here, hats off to you for figuring out how to trap the knight. He can't escape anywhere. So, and the game ends. Well done. That's game number one. Now on to game number two. Game number two was against Yokoyama from Moldova. And here we have the Italian game opening. Okay, these moves here are frequent recurrence in all the games you play with an e4 opening. And as black, you need to know how to handle it. And you've chosen this line, which takes it into the Gaiaco piano game, also known as the quiet game. Quiet in contrast to one of the other alternatives, which would be the knight f6 line, the two knights defense. Okay, the two knights defense is a much more volatile opening because it potentially allows white to play knight g5 right away, attacking this pawn. And it leads to all sorts of complications where black plays d5 and other kinds of moves. But the Gaico piano is much more balanced, much more harmonious kind of a position. So perhaps it suits the more positional player. And in this game, we have this very interesting strategic theme on how to handle the pawn storm, you know? And I have to say, for me, watching the game, I realized that uh, I need to learn how to handle this better myself because one of the moves I would have seriously considered is indeed h6. It's the way I have been playing this position many a time. And when I was using the computer to analyze, I see that actually that's not a good way to defend against it. In most situations, what you want to do is you want to not disturb these pawns unless you have to, and instead play more along these lines. Do some stuff like this here in the center, or even bishop back. And if the pawn were to come, then you can always retreat here or somewhere else. But yeah, the problem with h6 is white could play an immediate g5, which forces a capture, and you've just got this bishop sitting here with a nice pin against the queen, and then white will take his pieces out, castle, bring the rooks here, and there's just a lot of long-term pressure to deal with. It's difficult. If the pawn was not up, then the knight has more opportunities, more options on what he could do after this. He can go here. But now with this pawn being here, then white could capture here, and it will really end backfire. So point is not to move that pawn up and instead play in the center. But as the game progressed, you played with some very interesting moves here. Like this was a very interesting move, b5. I liked it. It's good. It's tactical. But the follow-up, and it coaxes an error from him actually, because yeah, had you captured the knight here, you would have actually won a piece. You have to calculate in these tactical positions. You have to see what are the different possibilities and then do the mathematics on it and see how it turns out. You have to calculate. Capturing the bishop, I understand the bishop's a dangerous looking piece here, but the knight and this bishop pin here, it makes it that you'll get another one. It's a great pawn to take. So instead we have this situation, and what we're going to see here is that white potentially has a fireball of an attack. If he just captures this pawn right here, it can be very difficult for black to defend because you sack the knight and the queen can come here putting pressure on this knight. The rook can come here putting pressure on the king. Castling maybe, doubling up the rooks, all sorts of pressure. It's really looking scary. But you need to be a pro to play like that, and let's just face it, you're not playing against pros, you're playing against chumps. So now we have the key moment where he can play this check, and you're going to be in a lot of trouble here. And you went greedy, you went for the thing, for the kill, and this allows all sorts of possibilities which will result in a checkmate at some point with proper play. But you're playing against a human, and he's keeping it symmetrical, and now he's castled. And now you have your moment to checkmate him right away in 2 moves. But you don't see it because maybe you had a plan in mind already, like from before, that your king's too vulnerable, you've got to rush to defense, that you didn't even see the possibility which had emerged from out of nowhere. So then this leads to a second follow-up mistake, which is moving the king into this corner. I know it's counterintuitively not the safer spot. Here is the right square. It's not an easy one to see, but yeah. But here you've got this check, and now you just lose a rook, and then the game ends very quickly after this. Not much to see. On to the final game, the third game. Again, we see the Italian game pan out here, and this time you're white. So you like to play this with white as well as black. It's a great opening to learn. And your opponent plays h6, the anti-fried liver defense. Fried liver attack would mean if knight came out here to f6, and then you went to knight g5. I think that's known as the fried liver attack. Really just going all in against the king. But by playing this, he's preventing your knight from going there. So it's an anti-fried liver defense. But it's a weak move. It's a weak move because black is anyway one move behind, and now he's essentially two moves behind because he's wasting a tempo on a side of the board which is not really relevant. So the correct way to play here, I believe, is to attack the center. And this is from analyzing a few different games. Attacking in the center seems to be the right way to handle it. It makes sense in principle. You want to, you know, remove his central pawn and take advantage of him playing on the flanks, then you play in the center. The castling style is the slower style and it allows him some time to regroup and maybe even make use of this and start creating a kind of bind on your position. But all in all, this is going fine. This is going just fine. And one could even argue that this is some moderately professional level of play here. Okay. So all really good, really solid. Um, and now you start feeling a little bit of pressure on the c3 pawn. And but all in all, I like the energy of the play, especially the utilization of the queen is really good. He didn't see this opportunity here. Um, when you came here with the queen, he could have come back with the knight, and that would have made your plans. It would have made it very awkward for you. But anyway, instead you won a knight, so now you're very ahead in the game, and this is a moment where you want to tighten the noose further. This is not the time to consolidate the advantage. Yes, the pawn is here, it's close to the end, but it's not really going to reach there. So you don't have to rush to clip him off, although you shouldn't keep him on too long either. A move like rook e7 here would be really nice. Attacking the queen and taking the 7th rank. It's more pro level play. And then you can double up the other rook. You know, instead we have this thing where we're trying to win a pawn and now the queen is in an awkward situation. And okay, you traded off the queens. Fair enough. Fair enough. Uh, I think I don't like it so much because I believe like knight here can be so with the queen you can be so deadly. But anyway, this is fine. Uh, it's fine until you realize that well you're under quite a lot of pressure with this pawn and there's no easy way to defend it and there's a lot of easy way for him to attack it. So we end up playing these sequence of moves which are just simplifying and moderately diluting the advantage which you had worked to build. And here we have the best moment of the game in the sense that the most informative. Now we have officially reached the end game, and in order to win the end game, you need to come up with a plan. What's your end game plan? Kings always have to be active in the end game. It's like your main piece. And you have to think of this game not in terms of individual moves, but more like from strategic themes. He's got this pawn mass on the queen side, which is not where your king is. Your king is nowhere near here. So when these pawns do come forward, it would be nice to have a king around to just gobble them up. So I personally think this is the way to play. King, just walk the king to the center. Don't count on these two bozos to nip off all the pawns. That's not easy. It's not so easy. So that's what we see in this game. There's no clear plan on how to finish the end game, how to use the king. Like you're waiting for him to make a mistake and let you win the pawn or something like that. But you know, he didn't make that kind of mistake. And slowly, he came. But and your king staying at home. And that's the lesson of this game. You got to make your king active. You had the first position, but then it ran out. So all right. Hope you enjoyed the series and talk to you later. Oh shit, was the thing blocking the camera? Anyway, whatever.